Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ari, and hopefully you'll stick around for a quick video. So guys, today I thought I would talk just a little bit about therapy and whether or not it's really worth it. So, if you are transgender, you've probably had thoughts about therapy somewhere along the lines, and there are some positives and some negatives along the way, as well as some essentials really to know. So I started therapy about 10 months ago, I guess. I've been with the same therapist the entire time, and I understand a lot of the fears going into therapy because, you're kind of scared, going for, a gender therapist. You're kind of scared that they're not going to validate you, that maybe they're going to look at you as strange, and it's very unnerving. So, one of the things I did right from the get-go is I did my research. I made sure that I was finding a trans-friendly therapist, and that is incredibly important if you're looking at therapy. You want someone who is competent in gender therapy. You want someone who understands what it means to be trans, who understands the processes that we may or may not go through, who understands terminology and ideology and all of these things that can be associated with being trans so that you are properly respected. And thankfully, I did that going in, and I honestly and truly could not have found a better therapist in my state. I am so happy with my therapist, who is a very warm and kind and just very easy to talk to person. So the first thing I would say is do your research before you go in. You want to make sure you get the right person before you're walking into this. Another thing is you're going to have to really be prepared to lay it all out on the table. There is a bit of pressure when you're going in, especially if you're interested in things like HRT or any type of gender-confirming surgeries, because obviously we want to convince the therapist. And under most cases, if you get a good therapist, you really don't have to worry about convincing them. They want to hear your story. They want to look at that and to be able to give you some ideas, some tips. Being trans and in the closet, unfortunately, can come with a lot of anxiety and depression, and the gender dysphoria can just be absolutely terrible at times. So they want to be a source of help. But again, it's all based on whether or not you did that research and found the right therapist. So having been in it for these 10 odd months, the question becomes is, do I feel that it was worth it? And I have to say overwhelmingly, absolutely it was worth it. But I acknowledge that for a lot of people, it's difficult or not possible because therapy is not cheap. What you pay, it can really start to rack up the bill. And you have to be able to make certain determinations throughout it. I made determinations on how often we were going to meet, because at first we were going to do it weekly, and I'm like, I can't do weekly. So we split to bi-weekly, and there have been times when I've told my therapist, I'm going to need another month before I'm going to be able to come in because there are financial concerns. So you have to feel comfortable enough talking to your therapist to be able to set certain parameters. I know that, my therapist has been an integral part of me being able to work up to the point of when I came out at work. The only person I came out to prior to therapy was my best friend. No one else. Everyone else that I've came out to since has been since I have been in therapy. And we talked about the stages in which I wanted to go and what was important to me and what was the top of my little stress pyramid, the biggest stressor, which was coming out to my mother. Not because I was afraid of my mom, but because I talked to her so often and she is such an important person in my life. So coming out to her was really laying everything out on the table. But, we talked about that and we did steps to build up. And having that therapist, especially when sometimes you might feel isolated, really gives you that opportunity to feel like there's someone, kind of cheerleading you. Someone who is, excited for your successes. So that is like a really nice part, to the point to where I look forward to my therapy appointments. It's an opportunity for me to talk about how I feel, to get input from someone else who is going to give me honest and informed input on my situation, and someone whom, while they might be cisgender, isn't looking down on transgender folk. So it is, for me, has been an amazing experience. My criticisms of therapy are that A, yes, it's expensive. B, it is incredibly time-consuming to find the right therapist. And if you go and you see a therapist and you don't click with that person, find someone else. In order to be able to have successful therapy, you're going to have to find someone that you are really comfortable with. I've only had one therapist in my entire life up until this point. I will have to get another one in the future, because I do, when it comes to the point of surgery, bottom surgery at least, you have to have more than one letter. But, the reason I've stayed with this same therapist was because when I came in on day one, I felt completely and totally comfortable. I was able to talk to her about anything, which was amazing because I wasn't even able to admit a lot of things to myself before I had come into that environment. So, there are issues. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of this gatekeeper model. You may be able to avoid the gatekeeper, and we'll do a video on that, if you're for HRT. There are options when it comes to HRT that won't necessarily involve that gatekeeper model that WPATH has out there. Now, you have to decide on the risk and the benefits of going that route. The gatekeeper model requires that letter from your therapist before you're going to be able to start on HRT. The other model is informed consent, which you can do to start HRT, which is basically they just tell you all the risk that could be associated and what changes you could expect, and you sign off basically saying, yes, I understand this and I'm willing to take the risk, and these are the changes that I want to see happen. But informed consent only goes as far as HRT. If that's as far as you want to go and you feel incredibly adjusted in your own skin, then that may be a good option for you. But if you're looking at going further, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to think about it, you have to be able to have that therapist backing and their support. In order to get the breast augmentation that I am having at the end of April, I had to have that letter from my therapist agreeing that I was ready for the step, that I am transgender, that, this was a good move for me. So you need to keep in mind that you are going to end up needing that therapist if you go beyond, especially HRT, and you may even need that therapist to get HRT. So it is important to look at all of your options and know what's coming ahead. But having the therapist can be a very positive experience if you go into it both educated and finding the right person and really willing to lay everything out on the table. It takes time to get there. I can't even tell you that I'm 100% comfortable laying everything out on the table, but I can tell you that I'm a hell of a lot closer to that than I was 10 months when I started seeing my therapist. It is helpful. I have learned ways to process my anxiety, ways to deal with my dysphoria that are constructive rather than destructive. So I definitely wholeheartedly believe that therapy is worth it. I'm not convinced that it should be required necessarily, but I do think it has a lot of benefits, and I would encourage anyone who is struggling with their gender identity to look into that. You may have something, if you're a college student, you may have something on campus that maybe you can get access to a therapist for free. Or maybe your work, may cover a therapist that is very competent on gender issues. So, if you are experiencing the gender dysphoria, it may be a good place to start. Then you can decide from that starting point, is this worthwhile for me? So anyway, guys, that is pretty much for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope the information was helpful and just giving my idea and my perspective on therapy. If you did enjoy the video, please click the subscribe button. I really appreciate all of you who have already done that. It means the world to me that you've subscribed to the channel, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So I will close with my quote from Kesha. Don't let the bastards get you down. Be yourself. Don't let anyone stand in your way. You have to know your innate value and understand that you deserve the right to live authentically. So, that is pretty much it. Until the next video, I love you guys, and bye-bye.